Hi again, folks. This is one of those days where I'm just showing up. I didn't plan to do a video today, but I figured while I had the opportunity, I would go for it. I've kind of only vaguely planned out what I wanted to talk about, but I had an idea, and I figured I would divide these videos into two series, one of which being each individual herb itself, going through its various uses and showing folks what it looks like, how to on some gardener herbs, how to grow them, but then for the wild herbs, showing them out in the wild, and how to identify them a little bit. The other series, which is kind of what I want to jump into a little bit today, is talking about sorry, there's a watch going off over there. The second series is talking a little bit more about conditions that herbs can help with, and just kind of what I've experienced, but also what I've read and just heard from other folks and learned throughout this whole process. It's one of the beautiful things I love about herbs is getting to connect with people and, the way they've helped them. So I'm always learning, and I thought it would be helpful to kind of start sharing some of that information just in general. That way other folks can hopefully benefit from it too. And sorry, I'm kind of winging it today. Let me take a drink of tea to get my mind right. I realized in the last video I had a cup of tea the whole time, didn't take a single drink, it was cold by the end of it. So I'm trying to remember that this is here. So anyway, the first one I thought I would start with is actually something that a couple folks have approached me about recently, and that's how herbs can help with eczema. So eczema, from what I've read, what I understood, and I've also watched a lot of YouTube videos of folks who've dealt with it personally. I don't personally deal with it. I've dealt with a couple other skin conditions, but nothing quite like the way eczema is. But I know a lot of folks that deal with it, and so I thought it'd be a good place to start. So eczema is, from what I understand, what I read, it's a inflammation condition. It's genetic. So some folks are just more predisposed to it than others, and it's kind of like allergies or asthma. So various environmental and diet factors will play a part in that inflammation that then presents as a flare. And so one of the things they've found is that folks who deal with eczema are kind of chronically lacking in the natural skin lipids and the healthy fats that skin needs in order to, if you look at skin on a molecular level, it looks like a brick wall. You have all the little cells and they're tightly packed. But eczema has a way of making them more look like a basket, where those skin cells aren't as packed together as tightly as they should be. And it's those lipids that hold those together. So hence the dryness and the itchiness. So when we're talking about eczema, there's kind of two approaches. And the first is the internal approach of what's causing the flare, how diet can affect that, and especially diet. A lot of folks I listened to on YouTube, they had to kind of limit themselves down to a bare bones diet and then slowly build things back to figure out what was triggering it, because it can be different for different folks. And the second approach is the topical treating of the sores and the itchiness, and so a lot of folks recommended that an inside-out kind of approach is the best way to go about it. Like you focus on the internals first, and then you approach the outside causes, which can be really difficult because the itchiness is unbearable for some folks. I also read a lot about what some folks were calling topical steroid withdrawal. And this is when the body is becoming so reliant on the topical steroids and the medications that the withdrawals from those steroids actually start presenting as really bad eczema flares. So these folks didn't know that they were having these withdrawal symptoms because they thought it was eczema, and it actually ended up turning out to be the topical steroids, unfortunately. Sorry. And these poor folks, it was a long process of them having to come off of them. And it's from what the dermatologists were saying, it was really difficult to identify the difference between the topical steroid withdrawal and the eczema itself because they're so similar in the way they present. So, we're talking about diet and the internal causes of eczema. A lot of folks had to go down to a really bare diet, like white rice, cutting out dairy, refined sugars, anything that had any possibility of high GMO, like corn and soy. And they had to go with high protein. And because, if you have a really good, steak, for instance, not only is it high in protein, but it also has that healthy fat in it. And so the high protein diet, and then they also had to avoid anything with sorry, hold on, there's someone outside. They had to avoid high histamines, which is your citrus and nightshades like tomatoes, and cut those out completely because the really acidic nature of those made it more difficult for them. And so one of the things with internal and the herbs you can use for internally, I have, sorry, the cows are going nuts out there and it's really distracting. You might be able to hear them. It's feeding time. So, with herbs, cleavers has been one that we've had some success with. I have the folks I know, they're taking cleaver tincture, Oregon grapefruit tincture, and nettle tincture at the moment. And they've been saying that those have helped a lot. Sorry. And all of those can be taken as teas or infusions as well. And when I say infusion, that's a really concentrated tea. So you take, you have your little tea bag size here, but you're taking almost an ounce worth of herbs instead in an infusion. In an infusion, you let it sit overnight in the water. And then that way it kind of pulls more of those nutrients. Because, I mean, if we're being fair, you don't get a ton from one of those. I still love tea. I'm not knocking tea. But an infusion, if you were needing the nutrition of those foods, or herbs, an infusion is kind of a much better way to go. And then tinctures themselves are also highly concentrated. So doing either, I'm sure you've heard that one. They're so distracting. Sorry. on top of like not having things planned out, and then the cows out there going nuts. The pasture is like literally like right outside our door. My brain's a little all over the place, but hoping you're finding this useful. So teas, infusions, tinctures are all really good ways of consuming herbs. There's also capsules that you can use. For now, what I have these people using is the cleavers, which cleavers, it's kind of like a vining shrub. It grows, it's invasive, so if you see it, if you have it in your yard, feel free to harvest it. It's also really hard to kill completely, so pretty much use as much as you want, and I almost guarantee it'll still come back. But it has really fine hairs all along the leaves, and so what that does is it really helps clean out your digestive tract. It clears everything out. And so, and that's important because what they're finding is a lot of folks who deal with eczema flares, one of the internal causes is that your gut microbiome is kind of out of whack. And so what you need to do is use herbs that will kind of reset that healthy bacteria in your guts. And one of the best herbs for doing that is Oregon grapefruit. So Oregon grapefruit, especially on top of the cleavers, because the cleavers helps clear things out, but the Oregon grapefruit actually helps rebuild that healthy bacteria. That's what I meant to say. Because of this compound that it has in its roots. As when you take Oregon grapefruit and you actually scrape away the bark, you'll see that it's like bright, almost fluorescent yellow. So that is called, that compound is called berberine. And I might be saying that completely wrong, but you can look it up. And so what that does, though, is it helps rebuild your healthy gut bacteria, the bacteria that you want. And this is also important for folks who deal with things like leaky gut syndrome or SIBO, because a lot of what that condition has to do with is the balance of your gut microbiome. Sorry, hold on. And so in conditions like those, that there's like holes, or like it's your lining in your guts is like porous, and so the bacteria, the unbalanced bacteria, kind of leaches out into your skin. And even with like leaky gut syndrome, like those folks still deal with like rashes and itchiness, so it's kind of similar. So when you're thinking of the internal causes, like your gut health is where you should be focusing. And those herbs, cleavers, and Oregon grapefruit really help with that. The third one I have these folks on is nettle. Nettle is more for rebuilding just base nutrition. I love nettle. She's an amazing, amazing plant. In so many ways, and I can't wait to do a video about just nettle, because I might not be able to keep that one below half an hour just talking about nettle alone. So nettle has all sorts of vitamins. She has vitamins all the way up through K, B12, and even the nettle plant itself, like if you can make it into a pesto even, but if you're consuming like the leaf in like a capsule, dried obviously, nettle also has protein in it, and so that's very beneficial. I kind of think of it as almost like a daily supplement, because there's so much to value about nettle. So kind of to cover the bases, I've given these folks nettle tincture as well. That way we know we're covering all those, like, core needs, especially when it comes to, the vitamins and minerals. So then when we're talking about, like, the outside, like, approach to eczema, one of those herbs comes right back in, and that's the cleavers. So cleavers you can actually poultice, so you can kind of mash it down with a little liquid, and then put the poultice right on the sores, and then cover it with like a loose bandage or like a loose wrap, and keep it on there for a little while, and it'll help reduce the inflammation that way as well. Those little hairs will kind of fill in and pull away what might be irritating it, and she's just really good for clearing out that, like, internally. She'll also clear out your lymphatic system, which also might be core to that internal treatment, but she also works externally as well. So the other one, though, is cedar, like cedar leaf. I've heard some folks talking a lot about just kind of the anti-inflammatory, but like also antibacterial and antifungal qualities that cedar leaf has. And again, they were using it as not quite a poultice, but like they were just brewing a really like strong tea and like doing washes with cedar, and that was helping a lot. A lot of folks have had a good luck with tallow. So tallow is essentially rendered animal fat from red meat animals. So it can either be like cow or deer, just different renditions of tallow that can be done from most red meat animals. And that works really well externally, especially because the skin recognizes those lipids as familiar. Humans are essentially, when you boil it down, a red meat animal as well, so the body recognizes that. One of the folks I'm working with is vegetarian, so obviously she doesn't want to use the tallow, understandably. So I'm doing a version of a balm right now. I'm working on some balms of cleavers, cedar, and then I'm going to do one with tallow, and then one with mostly just a beeswax base, because the same kind of antibacterial, antifungal, antiviral qualities that bee products have is very beneficial to that skin treatment. And then one more herb that is also said to be very helpful, which I'm going to put into both balms, is hemp. So hemp is one of the best anti-inflammatories I've come across yet, anyway. And you can use it externally as well as internally. It'll still have the same benefits. So I've put in, like, infused like hemp oil into both of the balms. But for the most part, those are kind of just a quick rundown of the herbs that I'm learning about that help with eczema, that we're having some luck with. We haven't tried this balm out yet, but I'm excited to give it a try and see if it'll help. Been having a lot of luck with the cleavers and Oregon grapefruit internally, so especially, and then just nettle as a good basis. So I hope that's informative for some folks, and can't wait to give you an update about hopefully how this balm works. And I guess we'll take it from there. So I'm always looking to learn. If you have more experience yourself, if you specifically know of herbs that have helped. I know some folks have also talked about burdock and burdock root being very helpful. You can find it as a tea. I haven't found big places where burdock grows in kind of sustainable quantities. So that's not one I've worked with or really plan to until I know for sure the environment can support it. The other ones, cleavers is invasive, Oregon Reaper is everywhere, and they're really in no danger of overharvest. Nettle as well. So that's something I kind of try and keep in mind when I'm harvesting as well, is not taking too much, because it's really important to keep the environment's like health and balance first in mind. But other than that, like, please drop comments below. Let me know what you've experienced and what you've found helps. And I can't wait to hear from you. Any amount of support helps, no matter how small, even if it's likes, comments, and shares. You can find us over on at Wild Blood Herbs on Instagram, as well as wildbloodherbs.bigcartel.com is where I keep all of our herbal products and what we have available at the times. And if you're looking for anything specific, let me know, because I love to keep learning, love to share what we're doing with folks. So thanks for joining me, and I appreciate it. You have a good night.